Well, as I've told you many times in the past, I'm writing a book about Kyle Rittenhouse. Well, I was. I'm not so sure anymore. It's a lot of work, and frankly, I don't know. Maybe I'm not all that good at it. But what I thought I would do is read you a chapter that I've written so far and see what you think about it. At any rate, this is going to be about Pudgy's Pub. And this is about Kyle Rittenhouse and what he was truly doing there in that tavern and why. Hello out there. I am trying to get through.
With his powerful brainwaves cradled in the warmth of reasoning, it's time for Johnny Walker Dread to straighten you out on a thing or two. Emanating all the way from exciting Las Vegas, Oklahoma, it's the Johnny Walker Dread Show.
Okay, so this has been a little bit harder than I thought. But I give it my best shot. It's still in draft mode. I mean, I got to do a little bit of wordsmithing here and there, but at least you'll get the idea of what I'm working on. So this is a chapter I wrote about the incident at Pudgy's Pub. And if you recall, I was doing a series of videos on who is Kyle? What's he really like? And I had done 2 of them already. Well, this will be the 3rd one. So this will be covering why was he at Pudgy's Pub? Why did he do what he did? All right, so it begins. Chapter, an incident at Pudgy's Pub. And I have some lyrics here from the Smiths that I think is rather appropriate. All right. Anyone heading to Pudgy's Pub, dreaming of a quaint Irish tavern where men play darts while their lady friends munch on imported cheese, will leave sorely disappointed. Shrouded in high-tension wires and surrounded by a vast concrete lot, Pudgy's Pub offers little more to Mount Pleasant than an unassuming redneck bar. In its spacious parking lot, you can almost hear the late-night vomiting of Heineken and the urging of friends not to try and drive home. Entering Pudgy's changes its image not one smidgen. In one corner rests a small coin-op pool table. 2 video games and a coin-op dartboard occupy the other side of the room. And running the entire length of the room is the bar, and it's a long one. People go to Pudgy's for one reason only, to drink while passing the time away. This bar was never meant to match the charm of the Cheers sitcom. As for the patrons, they match the description of every electrician, carpenter, and truck driver in southern Wisconsin. If the patrons of Pudgy's were placed in a police lineup for one accused of public drunkenness while urinating on a Prius, they would all be selected. Not much excitement ever happens in Pudgy's, but that would change soon, as the bar would soon greet a visitor that would position this lonely outpost squarely in Wisconsin crime lore. January 5th, 2022. Just 2 days past his 18th birthday, Kyle entered Pudgy's at some point during the early evening, mother and David Hancock in tow. They would spend the rest of the evening doing much of nothing, although not without consequence. Those wanting to watch the 4 hours of webcam coverage of Kyle partying it up in Pudgy's will need to load up on Sudoku and Red Bull, for the action that night may be the most over-dramatized in tavern history. The atmosphere in Pudgy's is not that of the raucous cantina, where local loudmouths get their asses kicked by Walker, Texas Ranger. Rather, Pudgy's generates the hustle and bustle of the frozen food section at Walmart. Wendy Rittenhouse sits at the bar scanning her cell phone, and her act is spring break at South Padre Island in comparison to the other patrons. Kyle eagerly searches for conversation. If Kyle was the hero of working-class stiffs, you would never know it by watching the video coverage. The locals pay him little heed, and even the black Labrador that wanders around the bar looking for pats of, "You're a good boy," strides right past him. Over time, people could begin to pay a little more attention to him, and the awkwardness of trying to initiate conversations dissipates with every sip of beer. Like a sailor in a nudie bar, Kyle seems to be forcing himself to play up his exuberance. He laughs heartily at a joke that couldn't have been that funny. Throughout most of the night, Kyle seems to appear positioned on the fringe of conversation, listening to others speak and waiting for his turn to interject. His mother pays no attention, as she seems preoccupied with the distraction of the tall, dark, and handsome variety. Members of the Proud Boys show up later in the evening and swiftly zero in on the Patriot Movement's new human hood ornament. Kyle basks in the attention from older men who 6 months ago would have chased him out of their shops. Requests for selfies erupt in no time, and for each selfie they ask Kyle to flash the OK finger gesture. Kyle, having found companionship, support, and a lot of beer, happily agrees. Their regrets will come later. At one point, the group serenades Kyle with the Proud Boys anthem. The origin of the song, a cover of Proud of Your Boy for the Disney film Aladdin, comes off as corny as the hand gesture. Kyle smiles politely and lets the song run its course, likely unaware of its meaning among alt-right circles. The song lyrics would not have tipped him off. Kyle must have stared into his beer and wondered if alcohol always had this effect on one's state of mind. Pudgy's Pub would have continued its winless streak in the National Tavern Drama Championships, but if it was not for the overly excited Karen who came across pictures of the teenager drinking alcohol. Flushed with excitement, someone named Lily of the Trenches raised the alarm, emailing local Kenosha activist Whitney Cabal and carbon copying every news outlet she could conjure for good measure.
Rumored to be taken on January 5th at Pudgy's in Racine, 7800 Washington Avenue, Racine, Wisconsin. Mount Pleasant Police here now. I can be reached via text at...
Every town suffers from an obnoxious gadfly. Some rage against racism in local schools, while others bemoan the tyranny of local property taxes. In Kenosha, Whitney Cabal plays the role. A common fixture at city council meetings, community members could always count on Whitney to violate every Roberts Rule procedure, insult everyone in the room, and act like a giant horse's ass. A morbidly obese BLM activist with an affinity for violent protest and a personality that can clear a room in 5 seconds, Whitney appeared straight out of Castine Central for the militant leftist with no boundaries of proper behavior. And she had the jailing of Kyle Rittenhouse on her to-do list. Whitney's zest for Kyle's incarceration is not hard to understand. Playing a role in landing Kyle Rittenhouse in jail would not only stroke her own political ego, it would lend a helping hand to a friend in high places. In an exchange of text messages first disclosed by the Kenosha County Eye, Whitney Cabal made it clear that she counted Kenosha County District Attorney Michael Gravely as a political compadre. Gravely responded equally chummy. Whitney's friendship of Gravely was so well known that she even made it a point to tell others that she was not having an affair with him. Naturally, the best way to start a rumor is to issue such a denial, and that was perhaps her aim. Still, it would be hard for even the most eager blabbermouth to pass such a ridiculous story down the grapevine. Built like a former NFL linebacker and possessing the looks of a company CEO, it is hard to imagine Gravely possessing any romantic interest in a swamp creature like Whitney Cabal. Using her alias Billy Violet, the call she placed the next day to the police oozed of the "I hate to be the one to tell you" faux concern eagerly voiced by a neighbor informing a friend that her husband has been cheating on him.
Hi, you guys are looking at a problem. I'm actually calling from Kenosha. I'm an activist out here, and there's a post online with a picture of Kyle Rittenhouse at Pudgy's on the 5th of January, which is felony bail jumping. And I'm concerned about the safety of the business and the owner, and I'm also concerned that video footage will be compromised because of the high level of the case. So I've notified the lieutenant that works beneath the chief in Kenosha. I've notified the district attorney, and I also know that the deputy chief has been notified here in Kenosha. But you're probably going to want to get eyes on Pudgy's because the post is like rapid fire spreading. I'm getting like tons and tons of messages about it. And I'm concerned that, one, if nobody reported it to the police, I'm concerned that camera footage is going to be compromised once they, Pudgy's, realize there's a post spreading around, or once people start calling, and I'm concerned for the safety and well-being of the business owner and the establishment because of, it's Kyle Rittenhouse is not exactly well liked. So for somebody to condone that,
Officers of the Mount Pleasant Police Department showed up at Pudgy's the next day. They let out an audible sigh of relief upon discovering that Kyle's mother was with him that night. An 18-year-old can drink in a Wisconsin bar while in the presence of a parent. The absence of any restrictions on alcohol consumption in Kyle's bail agreement further eliminated any chance Whitney had of gleefully helping her prey slip into a pair of handcuffs. Still, there were the optics. Plenty of bar patrons took cell photos that evening, and the story the images told would cause much grief for Kyle and his supporters. Countless Facebook posts showed Kyle beaming from ear to ear, arm in arm with Proud Boys, flashing a hand gesture described by many as a symbol of white supremacism. Perhaps Kyle's flashing of the OK hand gesture was a signal of his solidarity with the political views of his newly found friends. More likely, Kyle was unaware of its significance in social justice debates. Kyle has stated in public interviews that he did not know the meaning behind the OK symbol. As a teenager with no visible connection to alt-right political circles, Kyle had probably never seen the symbol used as anything but the universal sign of approval, or as Judge Schroeder quipped, the signature hand gesture of Chef Boyardee. Officer John Studebaker predicted much of the ensuing mayhem in a phone call shortly after the Pudgy's visit. "I'm in the middle of an absolute shitstorm that we're going to see on Facebook shortly." Officer Studebaker's predictions now seem understated. January 8th, 2022. Before Whitney Cabal could even wolf down an organic Boca burger, Twitter went nuts. In the absence of information, imaginations ran wild. Kyle must have called his Proud Boys friends to meet him at a roadside bar, where they would formulate a plan to save Donald Trump's presidency and suppress the black vote. Nando Villa of the Young Turks went even so far as to compare Kyle Rittenhouse to Lieutenant William Kelly, who was convicted for his part in the My Lai massacre in Vietnam. All the while railing against partisan insanity. It takes no imagination to see the hypocrisy in such a stance. A pause for a reason. As with nearly every news report and op-ed surrounding the Kenosha shootings, the truth told a more sensible story. To understand Kyle's actions at Pudgy's, one must view the events from a wider context. After spending nearly 3 months in jail, a traumatic experience for all but the most criminally hardened teenager, Kyle's t-shirts expressed his feelings. Free as fuck. Free to eat his mother's food. Free to sleep in his own bed again. Free to hang out at a local bar and get a little drunk. Judge Schroeder perhaps painted the best picture in Kyle's first motion hearing, although in his usual Newhart-esque stammer.
But if this man is accused of these crimes, which could send him to prison for life, and he encounters some people who embrace him and start to, can we take pictures with you, and somehow make him feel better about himself, and he reacts by smiling with them and taking some pictures, for me to let that in as evidence of a motive that existed 4 months earlier, can't see it. Absolutely not.
Sure, many on social media supported him, but to Kyle they seemed so far away. Like anyone else, Kyle needed to feel real handshakes and backslaps. Eager to find someone, anyone that would ease his feelings of isolation, Kyle positioned himself in the middle of the room, clutched a Budweiser, and hoped that some patrons would amble by, recognize him, and offer him some words of encouragement. How the Proud Boys managed to stumble on Kyle Rittenhouse drinking beer in a Wisconsin bar remains in dispute, but the meeting was hardly coincidental. After he is acquitted and free to tell his side of the story, Kyle pointed his fingers at his lawyers. As he told it,
The meetings were set up by my former attorney, who was fired because of that, for putting me in situations like that with people I don't agree with.
John Pierce would have none of Kyle's accusation, claiming he was not even at Pudgy's that evening. Instead, he took aim at David Hancock, the Rittenhouse family spokesperson and the man in charge of Kyle's security. Eager to position Kyle as a symbol of patriotic freedom and network him to potential funders, One finds it hard to imagine David Hancock not being in on the game. And sure enough, the Proud Boys that showed up had easy access to a client that normally would have been guarded like Justin Trudeau at a truck drivers' convention. The Proud Boys have eluded any attempt at categorization. Few will ever discuss them without mentioning the specter of white supremacy, but the Proud Boys' connection to racist ideology appears tough to decipher. After all, how many white supremacist groups are fronted by a Cuban of decidedly African facial features and skin tone? But for every defender of the Proud Boys dismissing any connection to racism, another will claim in no uncertain terms that the Proud Boys are the Ku Klux Klan fronted by Snoop Dogg's doppelganger. Consider the views of Thomas Binger during one of Kyle's bail hearings.
I believe that it is consistent with the Proud Boys' mantra, their philosophy of going to these types of protests armed with the intent of causing violence. And I think we will be prepared to introduce testimony from someone who is affiliated with the Proud Boys and will tell the jury about their philosophy, will tell the jury what sort of violent activities they do at these incidents. So again, I understand the court doesn't want to rely on a Seattle newspaper article. We will have a witness who will tell the jury exactly what the Proud Boys is about, exactly what they try and do, exactly what their philosophy is.
Whatever their views, members of the Proud Boys drove hurriedly to Pudgy's, eager to shake hands with the Kenosha Kid. They found Kyle in good spirits. At 5'6" and weighing no more than 140 pounds wet, even a single beer would have liquored Kyle up to agreeability. Kyle had 3. With little or no experience with booze and eager for companionship, any effort to cajole Kyle into posing for selfies with his newfound supporters and flashing whatever sign they wished would have proven trivial. Did Kyle know that the men he was hanging out with were Proud Boys? Not likely. Whoever called the Proud Boys to the bar that night would have gained nothing by informing Kyle of their true identities. Such awareness could have jeopardized the scheme if he somehow rejected the idea. Later, Kyle publicly claimed that he had no knowledge of their identity. No evidence suggests otherwise. We must also ask, did Kyle flash the OK hand symbol to show solidarity with the white power movement? Probably not. The history of the hand symbol is more convoluted than most think. The anonymous social media presence QAnon hijacked its meaning in 2017, suggesting that followers pass it off as a symbol of white supremacy as a practical joke on the left. The fingers and the thumb formed the letters WP, short for white power, or so the story went. The hoax worked too well, snaring countless adversaries of the left, including police officers, soldiers, politicians, and even 2 U.S. military academies, as targets of viral outrage. Even one of the threatening emails sent to Judge Schroeder mentioned his clearly inadvertent use of the symbol as proof of his racism. To muddy its meaning even further, many from the alt-right took the hand symbol seriously and adopted it for their own purposes. As it stands, one cannot ascertain the meaning of the symbol without examining the context behind its use on an individual basis, unless one believes that Barack Obama secretly flashed white power messages to his voting base. After the trial, Kyle stated that he was unaware that the symbol meant anything other than OK. His social media presence supports his claim. Teenagers are notoriously irresponsible online. At 17 years of age, Kyle could not have suppressed the urge to engage in racist banter, at least to some degree, if as driven by white supremacy as his detractors believed. Yet his social media accounts were probed by the police, his own defense team, and even Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg with more zest than a rookie cop frisking his first drug suspect. They found nothing. Kyle's enemies expressed little interest in such analysis. They seized the moment, tweeting and retweeting the affirmation they needed to portray the Kenosha shootings as a battle between right-wing patriotism and BLM activism. Any chance of Kyle shedding his alt-right image evaporated overnight. Meanwhile, Kyle supporters gritted their teeth, admonishing him for playing into the hands of his detractors. Kyle's criminal defense team buried their heads in their hands, exasperated that the political climate they had worked so hard to avoid was staring them right in the face again. Kyle's reputation never recovered, even to this day. Reflection. Plenty of people failed Kyle Rittenhouse that evening. Whoever called the Proud Boys figured they had uncovered a new way to bankroll Kyle's legal defense, but instead straddled him with an image that he still has not shaken. The Proud Boys who showed up at Pudgy certainly did Kyle no favors. Eager to take pictures with their boy hero, they completely forgot about the public image they were painting of a young man facing a long prison sentence. Or perhaps they didn't care. Regardless of whether he called the Proud Boys or not, under no circumstances should David Hancock have allowed any of this to happen. He headed Kyle's security team after all, yet his client spent the evening rubbing elbows with strangers of unknown intentions and armament. Wendy Rittenhouse admitted that she made a grave mistake in taking Kyle out for beers. Kyle had just turned 18, and she clearly wanted her son to experience a joyous rite of passage after having endured so much trauma over the past few months. However, Wendy placed too much faith in the judgment of others. As Mama Bear, she should have known better, but let her guard down in her faith that the others on her team would keep an eye out for her boy. To her credit, Wendy owned up to her mistake by taking responsibility for the decision to go to Pudgy's. But the die was cast and social media was quick to condemn her.
His mom is awful. Great goals for yourself and your children. Mother of the Year,
snorted Anna Kasparian. Binger seizes the initiative and bungles it. Upon hearing about the Proud Boys meeting, Binger immediately filed a motion to Judge Schroeder to modify Kyle's bail agreement, demanding that Kyle be banned from drinking alcohol and communicating with extremist groups. Finding scant resistance from Kyle's attorney, Mark Richards, the judge granted Binger his request on January 22, 2021. From that point on, Kyle was not to drink alcohol or knowingly have contact with any person or group known to harm, threaten, harass, or menace others on the basis of their race, religious beliefs, color, national origin, or gender. No one will ever confuse Thomas Clare Binger for Clarence Darrow, and his handling of the Pudgy's incident represents just one in a long string of strategic blunders. Without even realizing it, Binger had just eased any defense attorney's biggest fear, a client getting drunk and hanging out with bad guys. Sure, the modified bail agreement provided a small chance that Kyle would trip up and find himself in jail again. It also provided some propaganda value for the prosecution to stake its claim that Kyle was a minion in a neo-fascist army. Beyond that, however, the bail modifications were a win for the defense, for they diminished any chance that a drunken Kyle would utter the kind of incriminating statements that have destroyed so many self-defense arguments in the past. Binger files a motion. Later, a desperate Binger would try and introduce the Pudgy's incident as evidence in Kyle's homicide trial. His motive appeared to center more on winning in the court of public opinion than in the courthouse, for he could not have possibly thought his efforts would bear fruit. Shrewdly, Binger likely figured that his motion would offer another opportunity to place the Pudgy's incident, with all its trappings of white supremacy, into the public conscience. The anticipated denial of the motion would also help paint the judge as a puppet of the alt-right by a public ignorant of the law. Binger's middle school English teacher would have gasped aloud at the motion he filed with the court on July 1, 2021. The references cited in the document amount to little more than websites pulled from a quick Google search. Even that minimal effort was botched. Although the references were supposed to support his claim that the Proud Boys were violent desperados, only one hinted at such behavior. Another purported to describe Proud Boy actions in Seattle, but the news item contained within referred to an incident in Miami. The news outlet, however, was the Seattle Times. Evidently, the search listing, which likely mentioned the source as the Seattle Times, was enough for Binger to cite the source in the motion with no need to read the contents of the website. Judge Schroeder noted the amateurishness of Binger's motion during the Other Acts hearing on September 20th, 2021. As anyone with an ounce of legal knowledge expected, Judge Schroeder swatted Binger's Other Acts motion away like Jocelyn Allo knocking a lazy screwball out of a softball park. I had to put a little thing in there for my Sooner girl. First, he noted that Binger never offered any reason to believe that Kyle was affiliated with the Proud Boys when he took to the streets that August evening, or that Kyle would have even known who they were. The judge also noted that evidence of such an affiliation would not have been enough to admit the Pudgy's incident as evidence. In Wisconsin, merely being a member of a gang does not incriminate one of a crime. For the jury to consider the Pudgy's incident, not only would Binger have had to connect him to Proud Boys' affiliation 4 months earlier, but also demonstrate that Kyle's actions that night were a result of his association with the gang. Binger had no choice but to admit defeat, given that no such association even existed. But that was likely not his aim. True to form, the bulk of social media activists reacted in disbelief that Judge Schroeder would dismiss the Proud Boys connection from Other Acts evidence. Tweets from the usual woke suspects turned on the judge. However, if Kyle had been a member of Antifa, the same ones claiming that the Proud Boys incident was relevant to a murder charge would have cried loudly, and correctly, that merely being associated with Antifa doesn't make one guilty of a crime. Summary. We can now summarize the most important points related to the Pudgy's Tavern incident. Kyle's drinking did not violate his bail agreement, nor did it break any laws. Kyle's meeting with the Proud Boys was clearly planned by someone, but no evidence suggests Kyle agreed to the meeting or even knew who the Proud Boys were. Many in the public, especially social media activists, consider the OK hand symbol an expression of white supremacy. No evidence suggests that Kyle viewed it that way. The Pudgy's incident played no role in Kyle's trial, and for good reason. No judge in his right mind would have allowed the meeting as evidence of murder.